There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some
No,
chief
Ripper.
something officer.
All right, here we are. We're another week in to an NFL season that just continues. It is Monday, December the 2nd. We've made it to the final month of 2024. We got a great show this morning as TMA football, the morning after, rolls on. It is week 13. So a lot of times you go to the hotels, week 13, where's the 13th room? Where's the 13th floor? You don't do it often. So for week 13, we took a bye on the box score breakdown. I went to sleep. I looked at the box score. I saw some really interesting things, and I thought to myself, it's week 13. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but we don't need to write out the box score breakdown. We're going to take a bye week on it, just like the NFL teams and so forth, and skip it. But got a great show this morning to talk about exactly what happened in week 13. And week 13 was interesting, right, guys? Because week 13 had games on Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a really good time. Gobble, gobble. Week 13 had games on Friday, the Black Friday game. And then there were games on Sunday. And, of course, we will finish week 13 tonight with another good Monday Night Football game between Cleveland, Denver. Fun game. Good, interesting quarterback matchup. So lock in on Monday Night Football. Jameis Winston, Bo Nix. Some interesting matchups there. You've got Bo Nix, potentially the offensive rookie of the year leading candidate. He's definitely in a close race when you think about offensive rookie of the year with Jaden Daniels, who performed really well this weekend. And then, of course, Brock Bowers, who continues to be close to setting records for tight ends, not just at the rookie level, but a single season record of just tight end. So a lot of football to break down on this morning after football from week 13, and a long weekend of games we saw, which started on Thursday with 3. And let's just quickly touch on week 13, starting from Thursday and Thanksgiving. We saw an incredible Caleb Williams performance in the second half for Chicago. They looked like they had a chance to take out Detroit. And ultimately, Matt Eberflus let the time run out and expire, whether that, had something to do with Caleb should have had a better idea of time, so on and so forth. I hear you on all that, but Matt Eberflus was fired after the game the next day. Not surprising, to say the least. I've been on the Matt Eberflus train. Has not been a good coach for years. So as a Chicago fan, I think you have to be excited about what the future holds. We'll have to see what Chicago does. In the meantime, they will have an interim head coach. A lot of good names out there. We'll see where they go. That's how we started and kicked off this week 13 on Thanksgiving. We also saw the Miami Dolphins put up another clunker in cold weather at Green Bay in the evening. And, of course, we saw Dallas and New York. Mike McCarthy win in Dallas. They finally got that home victory. Looks like Mike McCarthy might be looking like he's getting a contract extension if you listen to Jerry Jones. I don't know how true that is, but something to pay attention to. That was Thursday. We fast forward to Friday. We got a Black Friday game, right? Started last year, Black Friday football. This year it continued. We got to see Kansas City on Friday and the Las Vegas Raiders, who put up a good fight. Looked like they could get the game. And, of course, Kansas City continues this season of W's, which people are unhappy about. They're saying Kansas City's not that good, but somehow it's whether it's luck, referees, whatever you want to say, Kansas City is finding new ways to get W's. We'll see how that turns out as the season goes along, but Kansas City wins on Friday. That gets us to Sunday. And of course, the matchups we saw yesterday, highlighted by Sunday Night Football, where those Philadelphia Eagles did a number on the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of questions, a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Baltimore and Philadelphia. Usually, TB is here to talk Ravens, to talk Eagles. The reality is Philadelphia has gotten it going. They've gotten it going in the right direction. He is the resident Eagles fan, and we have seen this growth out of the Philadelphia Eagles team now with Saquon Barkley, with Jalen Hurts, with that defense, their young players elevating, getting better, improving week in and week out, and they have a fearsome offense. When AJ Brown is playing, Eagles just win. That defense has come around. I mean, we see the highlight. If you look at ESPN this morning, you look around the social media feeds, Cooper DeJean tackling Derrick Henry in open space. The Eagles are a well-oiled machine. Big credit to Howie Roseman, who continues to be able to find the players, no matter what draft position, no matter where in the draft he looks, to fit into a roster that has a lot of high-end talent. And Philadelphia is right there in the NFC with the Detroit Lions. I mean, that's going to be a battle. And right now it looks like it's Detroit and Philadelphia at the top of the NFC. Green Bay is there. Minnesota is there. But does anyone really think that those two teams are on the same level today as what we're seeing from Detroit and Philadelphia? Maybe, but it does appear to me that Detroit and Philadelphia are at the top of the NFC, and Philadelphia proved that with their victory over Baltimore. Let's talk about Baltimore for a second and move to the AFC. The Ravens, Lamar, 10 weeks into the season was your leading candidate for MVP. Ravens this is the year. And now as we move to week 14, a lot of questions about Baltimore in the big matchups, in the games against good teams. What's happening? It's, Baltimore's 5th loss of the season, and they're not going to have home field throughout the playoffs. They're going to have to go on the road. They're going to have to beat good teams. And one of the big keys, forget Lamar or not, is their kicking. Justin Tucker, one of the greatest kickers ever. Some may say the best field goal kicker in history. That's fine. But he is missing kicks at an extraordinarily high rate these days. It's not just one game. It's not just 1 week. It's not just 1 month. But Justin Tucker continues to have multiple misses per game, which is creating a huge detriment effect to that Baltimore offense. Something we noted coming into the season, I had Justin Tucker rated as my 9th best field goal kicker coming into the season. People thought I was hating. It wasn't. He was not great last season. He's gotten worse this season. John Harbaugh is sticking by him, and I get it, but this is going to cost them in the playoffs if they don't get this corrected, if he doesn't figure it out, because he has been very unreliable, and it is affecting that entire offense. It's got to be affecting the players and the thought process now when Tucker is out there. Can he make the kick? So we're going to have to monitor this situation as the rest of the season, still 4 or 5 weeks of the regular season plus playoff games, a lot of time to see if Baltimore sticks with Justin Tucker throughout the rest of the regular season in the playoffs, or do they get another kicker? Would Baltimore potentially get another kicker and carry 2 kickers in the game? I know that sounds crazy. Could we see it? Because they have a lot of obviously built up respect and love for Justin Tucker. That is John Harbaugh. But we'll see. Would he keep Justin Tucker, even if he's going to keep missing 2 field goals, an extra point each game? I mean, at some point, you have to say the team is bigger than just the kicker that has done good for us for a decade. But we need it now. We need it this season. So Baltimore loses again to Philadelphia in a great game. And more importantly, let's join up some of the comments. Jordan Mason. Shout out to the question here from Jordan about Jordan Mason. How are we feeling about Jordan Mason? If we're looking at this from a standpoint of fantasy or real, Jordan Mason is a guy that I would want to go out and get again, because what we did see was that Christian McCaffrey suffered another injury in the San Francisco loss to Buffalo. It might be season ending. I would say it probably is season ending, even though I'm not a doctor. Regardless, Jordan Mason going to be valuable again, and so is Isaac Guerendo. I think Jordan Mason will get first crack at carries, but I think we'll get a small share of Isaac Guerendo. And so if you're looking at fantasy-wise for the playoffs, the next player up, I would say go look to get Jordan Mason. When he had full-time run and was not injured is the key, he was good. And he looked pretty good running the ball yesterday, Jordan Mason, on Sunday night. So, I would say Jordan Mason is a guy that I would want to go get if he's on your waiver wire to help you potentially make the playoffs, because week 14 is an interesting week. There's going to be buys, but I like Jordan Mason the rest of the year. I think he's a good running back, and I think there's going to be more on the Jordan Mason story in the offseason. It's going to be the type of player where we have to watch. Is San Francisco going to bring Jordan Mason back with the idea that he's going to potentially be a big part of their plans next season? Because we don't know what the situation is long-term with Christian McCaffrey. Or could Jordan Mason be used as a trade chip to maybe elevate another part of this San Francisco 49ers team that's going to need help? I don't think Debo returns. Obviously, Ayuk returns with Jennings. They have Ricky Pearsall, but we could see a different San Francisco team next season. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But Jordan Mason is a guy that I like for week 14 and the rest of the season. So make sure you can get him on your team if you don't already have him. All right, let's take a quick minute here as we're 13 minutes into the morning after week 13 football of a great season that just continues. And it's been a lot of fun to do these shows. We're taking a bye week from the box score breakdown. Nothing to share here around the box score breakdown, but we'll break it down here on the show. If you have questions, put it in the comments. We'll try to get your answer up. Shout out to everyone here. Monty Mavuso, appreciate you. Jade Bryant, appreciate you. We turning it up today. And a continuation of the great show. I've got my guy, Disco. Big Draft Energy had a huge week. Huge week. Finally took down the whale. He talked about it was one of his goals this season. He will join in the upcoming hour to talk about fantasy. I'm really curious to hear about Big Draft Energy and his system. He's putting out the content on a weekly basis around who you should be looking at each week. He has a different approach to the fantasy game, to the DFS game. And obviously, it worked out extremely well for our guy Disco this week as he took down a big tournament, and super excited for him and happy to hear, but excited to hear how he comes up with his analysis on the week, because he's been coming out with stuff. If you read it at times, it may be like, whoa, did not see that guy on this list that highly ranked coming, but he has a way of putting these names out there and sort of interesting dart throws, I'd say, of wow, like this person is going to be this best player at this position, and then it's coming true. So he's had a lot of hits, and that's been impressive to watch, but I'm excited to talk to him about the fantasy that he is seeing, especially as we get into, again, the playoff season for fantasy football, which is the time where you really want to win. It's fun to win in week 1. It's fun to win in week 10. It's fun to win in week 13, but most importantly, if you make the playoffs, you really want those wins to come in weeks 15, week 16, and week 17, depending on the type of playoffs you're in. There are all sorts of different league styles and settings. So we will talk to Big Draft Energy soon. Excited about that. If you are listening in, appreciate you for following. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. The YouTube channel got going this season with this show. We will, over time, potentially do more on YouTube, but right now, streaming live to X and to YouTube. If you're on X and you have a question, you want it answered, either real football or fantasy, put it in the comments and let's hear from you as we continue the morning after week 13. All right. So you subscribed, you followed, you've seen the content. We're about to get into the December push of the football season, which is playoff season. And I mean fantasy playoffs, and I mean real football. It's not just, playoff season yet, but it's get to the playoff season, right? So we're talking playoffs in a different way. In real football, we're looking at the teams that could potentially make the playoffs. And in fantasy, we're talking playoffs. We're going to save the fantasy stuff for just a little longer. Let's dive in to the playoff picture in the fantasy world next. Before that, let's go to the real playoff picture. It looks like we are at 71 viewers. I appreciate you all tapping in, but the playoff picture is getting to be pretty straightforward, I'd say. I'm going to pull up the playoff picture here in the AFC, and here are our standings as we look at the playoff pictures right now. We've got the Bills, who have clinched the AFC East. Credit to the Bills at 10-2. They've clinched the AFC East. They already have won it for the 5th straight year. AFC North, it looks like Pittsburgh is at 9-3. Baltimore 8-5. It doesn't matter with Cincinnati and Cleveland. We're not going to count them. I'm going to count them out for all intents and purposes. Well, we have Pittsburgh 9-3, Baltimore 8-5, and you go to the South where you have the Houston Texans at 8-5, trailed by Indianapolis at 6-7. The rest of the teams, Tennessee, Jacksonville, don't matter. They're out. And finally, the AFC West, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who as well have clinched a playoff berth. They are 11-1. They're trailed by the Los Angeles Chargers at 8-4, the Denver Broncos at 7-5. So I have shared this because it does look pretty straightforward when you look in the AFC playoff picture. It's really hard to see how one of those 7 teams I mentioned is not going to make the playoffs. I mean, granted, you do have the Colts at 6-7 who could potentially get in there. I mean, they have a matchup with Denver. Tonight's Monday Night Football game is huge. If Denver can beat Cleveland, they are favorites and get to 8-5. Los Angeles and Denver at 8-5, or Los Angeles at 8-4, Denver at 8-5, would really solidify those two as the wild card teams, I think, alongside Baltimore at 8-5. People can say, well, the Dolphins at 5-7 or the Colts at 6-7 have an opportunity to get in. I don't see it. I don't see it for Miami. I don't see it for Indianapolis. If Indianapolis was going to be the team, let's say, that has a shot, and they do, they have to win that Denver Broncos matchup straight up. But if you are one of those teams that is locked into the playoffs, really now it's about who do we want to match up with? Are we on the road versus are we home? You know, so the AFC playoffs are looking pretty straightforward when you look at it. I think the biggest questions for me are, can Buffalo get that home seed throughout the playoffs, that number 1 seed, which gives them a bye? I'm not sure Kansas City will continue to get these lucky bounces, these blocked kicks, these fumbles, all the things that have happened to get them to, you know, an 11-1 victory, which you could easily see Kansas City with 3, 4, 5 losses this season, even though they have won. I'm going to put my word down and say, I think that Kansas City will actually end up losing a few of these games down the stretch. And I do think that Buffalo has a chance at that number 1 seed, because remember, Buffalo beats Kansas City. So Buffalo does have that head-to-head tiebreaker. So really it's a 1-game lead for Kansas City, but if they lose, that 1-game lead is no longer just a tie. It's a tie where Buffalo gets the tie advantage. So in the AFC, I'm going to say, if we look at the playoffs now, Buffalo is going to get that home field throughout. I like Kansas City at the 2 spot, and then filter in the rest of your playoff teams, the winner of the AFC North, Pittsburgh, and then let's say Houston, and then you have your wild cards, Baltimore, Los Angeles, and Denver. It's going to set up for a good playoffs, but watch these teams down the stretch, starting with Denver tonight. Let's go to the NFC, and let's see what we're looking at in the NFC as far as our playoff picture. So Philadelphia wins. They're 10-2. They lead the Commanders at 8-5. Detroit 11-1 leads the NFC North, with Minnesota at 10-2. Green Bay 9-3. What a division. We don't care about Chicago at 4-8. And then you go to the South. We've got Atlanta and Tampa at 6-6. Someone's going to win that division. They have to. Those are the rules. The Saints out of it at 4-8, if you ask me. And finally, the NFC West. Seattle 7-5, Arizona, LA 6-6, and of course the 49ers 5-7. I don't think anyone predicted that, but that's what we're looking at. We've got a good, interesting NFC playoff picture. The thing about the NFC that's different is NFC, we have a lot of things that could happen. We have an undecided NFC South. We've got 2 6-6 teams. One of them's getting in as your division winner, and one of them's going home because you're not making it as the wild card. So let's just take a quick look at the wild card, and it looks like we can really pencil in Minnesota and Green Bay as our 2 wild cards for sure. And then you probably have to say Washington at 8-5 has a good lead to make the playoffs as well. So that's sort of where you look when you look at playoff teams, playoff matchups, playoff previews in week 13 of the NFL season. It looks pretty straightforward for the teams to pay attention to down the stretch with the matchups. Let's look ahead to week 14 and our NFL schedule as I pull it up here for us. And here we are. Any questions on playoff teams this season? Just drop it in the comments. We'll see if we can get you an answer during the show. But again, Big Draft Energy Disco will join us shortly on the program. So it is again Monday, December 2nd. We're here in December of the season. It's incredible that we've made it. Football is just flying by, and what a week of football starting on Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Lots of football, lots to talk about as we continue here on a solo pod of the morning after football. No TB to join today. He looks like he has another commitment. We miss him. We will have him back hopefully down the stretch here. Some fun shows to end our regular season in December, weeks 14, 15, 16, and then, of course, 17 and 18. So a lot of good football left. 6 weeks of football, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 5 weeks of regular season football. We have to finish tonight, Monday night. But let's go to one thing. We've talked about the playoffs after week 13. Let's look at the NFL draft order. The flip side of our playoff teams is the worst teams. And who have been the worst teams this season? Well, let's start at the top. Here we have our order right now. Now, interestingly enough, we're talking about a football season where usually if you only have 2 wins in the season, you're a guaranteed top pick. 3 wins, you got a guaranteed top 5 pick. But right now, what we're seeing in the NFL is a big dichotomy. We've got the really good squads or the teams winning a lot and the really bad squads. And the really bad squads are really bad. So we have literally 11 teams that only have 4 wins or less. That means you are looking at a Chicago Bears team that is 4-8, and yet they only are lined up for the 11th pick in the first round next season. Yeah, it's tough for some of these bad teams who are going to lose a lot of games and yet not get rewarded with that high draft pick that you're so used to. But at the top of the draft, we do see Jacksonville, Las Vegas, and the Giants. They are all 2-10. Las Vegas is sitting at number 1 right now based on strength of schedule. They are number 1. Sorry, Jacksonville, Las Vegas 2. At number 3, the Giants. Those are your top 3 picks in the 2025 draft right now. So if you're one of those teams, probably hoping to lose, Jacksonville, Vegas, the Giants, the one trend that you can see about those top 3 picks, Jacksonville, number 1, haven't had their quarterback, or he's played, he's gotten knocked out. Hopefully he's healthy after, again, a terrible hit we saw in week 13 to Trevor Lawrence. But Jacksonville now starting Mac Jones. You look at the number 2 team in the draft order, Las Vegas, Gardner Minshew, he's out. They're starting Aiden O'Connell. We've seen Desmond Ridder. The number 3 team, New York Giants, they cut their starting quarterback. They went to their 3rd stringer. They sat him and they played their 2nd stringer. Quarterbacks. The NFL is all about it's really all about head coaches and quarterbacks. If you have both, you're rolling. If you have one, you could be rolling. If you have neither, you're certainly not rolling. It's just how it works. It's the basic tenet of the NFL. So if you look at the NFL moving forward, weekly, season long, and you're trying to figure out good teams, bad teams, NFL head coaches, NFL quarterbacks. I give you some examples. And I just did it with the draft order. They have no coach. They have no quarterback. You're at the top of the draft board. Look at the number 4 team. It's the New England Patriots. Who's the New England Patriots quarterback? Drake May. They just got him, right? He's a rookie. So maybe they have a quarterback. Who's their coach? Gerard Mayo. You can see it. You're not seeing great names. You're not going to have a great coach and great quarterback together. You will not have them together and be at the top of the draft board. Let's go to number 5, the Carolina Panthers. At the Jets at number 6, Tennessee at number 7. These are the top 7 teams in the lineup for your draft in 2025. You notice a trend. No quarterbacks. It's all about the quarterbacks, guys. Injuries, all that and stuff play into it. But look, none of these teams have quarterbacks or coaches. We've seen coaches fired from all these teams, coaches, looking for new jobs, and quarterbacks that are going to be looking for new jobs or are not performing. And so here's the point. When you look at these teams season long or in general, if you want to do your homework to figure out who's really got a shot at the end, got to have both of these. And if you don't have these, you need these. Just that's it. So those are our top 7 in the 2025 draft order right now. Number 8 is Cleveland. They're 3-8. We'll see what happens with Cleveland tonight on Monday Night Football. But if they lose, they'll go to 3-9. They'll be right in their pack of the 3-9 teams. And then finally, rounding out the top 10, we have the New Orleans Saints and the Cincinnati Bengals. And New Orleans Saints, quarterback is questionable. They fired their coach. You look at number 10, Cincinnati. Quarterback not questionable. Best quarterback of those 10 teams, right? But their coach. You know what that leads me to believe? It leads me to believe that Cincinnati Bengals will make a change at the head coaching position in this offseason. It says, Zach Taylor, your time may just be up, because you shouldn't have a quarterback like Joe Burrow and still be losing game after game and having slow starts. And I do believe that what we will see is all this trend I've just talked about showcase the fact that Zach Taylor will be out in Cincinnati at the end of the season. All right, so that's our top 10 NFL 2025 draft order after the fact that we saw week 13. Want to make sure the stream is still working well. Let's just check that, because I'm getting a little bit of static here on the feedback, but I want to make sure we're going to get Disco to join shortly here, and we will rock and roll. Okay. The feed is looking pretty good. I'm just going to see if there's any questions from anybody in the comment section. Nope, we've gotten all the comments done. Okay, cool. Trying to think about what else has happened that we haven't touched on this morning on the morning after football, who is a dirty hit. As if you look at ESPN right now, they're showcasing the Azeez Al-Shaair, a hit on Trevor Lawrence. Wasn't the first time that he's been, taking a dirty shot on a player. And certainly I think there will be repercussions to the Jaguars defensive player for his hit on, not the Jaguars defensive player, the Texans, sorry. His hit on Trevor Lawrence was quite dirty. Good to hear that Trevor Lawrence is home and healthy, but be curious to see if Trevor Lawrence plays again this season. It's tough, man. Jacksonville is in a whole world of hurt. They've got to figure out what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. They paid him in the offseason. He hasn't, been good. He hasn't been healthy. Doug Peterson on his way out. Who will be the Jacksonville head coach? Is, the rumors about Bill Belichick coming to Jacksonville, could that be true? Could we see the greatest NFL head coach in the history of football in Jacksonville next season? Could we see him somewhere else? There's a lot of questions that I have around where these coaches will line up. Speaking of coaches that I like and will want to monitor where they'll go, Mike Vrabel is out there. Could Mike Vrabel be on the sidelines of Chicago? Could Mike Vrabel be on the sidelines of Cincinnati? Where will these coaches go is important to pay attention to where these teams will be in 2025. So a lot of storylines to monitor, not just as we finish the stretch run here of our 2024 NFL season for playoff teams, playoff positioning, who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's going to win first pick on the flip side, but who are the teams that are going to go out and get a coach before the others? Because there's going to be a battle around some of these names. And then there's guys like, could we see Minnesota defensive coordinator Brian Flores finally get another head coaching chance? He was good in Miami. Unfortunate way that the whole entire situation with the Dolphins ended, but you could imagine that Miami almost may be wondering like, hey, maybe we wished we had Flores. Not saying he's going to return there, because obviously there was a falling out, but could we see Brian Flores in New England? He's got the ties there. Could they move on from Gerard Mayo? He's been questionable and suspect at best. A lot of names out there. Ben Johnson, does he get it done in Detroit this year and say, now's my time to go to an opportunity I like? He passed up Washington. Maybe he wants Chicago. Maybe he's interested in Cincinnati. Maybe another role is going to come about that he likes more. There's so much intrigue and storylines to talk about for next season, already this season, that we can monitor and pay attention to. All right, so if you're on X, make sure you're following, subscribing. I'm going to certainly hit up the comment section here. If you have any questions, let me take a second here to get to the live. Okay, so took a second to just repost across the X and also drop it into chat to make sure that if there's any football questions, fantasy related, I want to make sure they get answered today on the morning after football, week 13. Okay, so let's quickly touch on fantasy in my lane. Okay, most importantly, let's start by saying that one, my playoffs already started in the Scott Fishbowl League, SFB14. You can see the hashtag, and SFB14 is an industry-wide league. This was my first season doing it. Playoffs started 2 weeks ago in the sense that you play for 11 weeks, and then week 12 is wild card week 1, week 13 wild card week 2 to advance. Make the playoffs, 2,000 teams. After week 1, you advance 1,500 teams, and now we're down to get to 1,000 teams. We'll make it to week 14 and the third week of the playoffs. I will advance in that. So that's the only playoffs I've been participating in so far in the fantasy season. I know it's early, but it's industry. It's different. You can check all that out at scottfishbowl.com. You can learn more, donate. Scott Fish does a great job of donations, fantasy cares, and the charitable aspect that is going on inside of fantasy football. Really cool merging of the two, something I learned about in the past year. Really, really neat. And if you're interested, maybe you can participate in Scott Fishbowl season 15, SFB 15. Lots of ways to get involved. Thousands and thousands of industry insiders, content creators, fantasy diehards that love to play and compete are participating year in, year out. So take it and go join the league, do all the things that you can do next season to be a part of it. But that's the Scott Fishbowl season. So that's the only fantasy league that I've been already actively participating in a playoff push for. A lot of fun, a lot of difference. But as far as season redraft home leagues, those fantasy playoffs start in week 14 or week 15 for most of you. Week 15 is on the horizon. Got one more week. I'm on the borderline of making some playoffs. I'm going to be talking about it through the next week or two. We're going to dissect some of what went right, some of what went wrong with my fantasy teams, my fantasy analysis in the preseason, what was smart, what was not, hopefully to not only help us understand better this season, but to understand more for next season. So we'll get into all of that as we move forward on TMA over the upcoming month. Remember, if you're just joining us, thank you for being here on another week morning on Monday of the morning after football. It is week 13, usually a bye week. Usually you go to hotels, you see there's no number 13. I can't find my floor. They don't have 13, 12 to 14. Well, you can't find the box score breakdown because there's no box score breakdown on week 13, just like others. We took a bye from week 13 to put together the box score breakdown, but I do say you should check it out. It's a lot of fun. If you just go look at some of those box score numbers, you'll find some really interesting things that stick out to you that are different than just sort of watching the games. You'll sort of have a better feel on how are players performing, how are teams performing, what stands out. I think it's something that if you do it on a weekly basis, it takes just a few minutes. You won't sort of get all the media interpretation and information provided to you. You'll sort of have a different perspective and view of what you're reading, learning, watching. So with that being said, it will be back next week because it's a lot of fun to break down some of the highlights of box score breakdown. But of course, week 13 was a wild one. We started with Thanksgiving, Thursday, Friday football, Sunday football, and now we have Monday night football. Before we get all into that, we're going to talk to my guy, Big Draft Energy. He's here. He's joining us in just a second. But of course, make sure you are following, subscribing, turning on notifications if you want to win more at football. And I don't just mean fantasy. I mean in weekly fantasy, in player prop pick'ems, a big industry evolution here where you don't just have to bet the games, the teams, you can bet on the players, and Disco does it better than that. And so let's bring him in to talk all about it all. I have so many questions. It's good to see him. My guy, Disco, good morning. It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to be here. You hearing me loud and clear? Everything sounds good, looks good?
What? Look, you look great. You sound good. You sound good. You look great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I need to set up more like yours with this disco. I mean, the disco vibes are already coming through right now with the screen. Look at you. All right, so let's just start. Make sure you're following Big Draft Energy, Disco, one of the best in the business. And I mentioned as you're coming on, and something I've been watching and observing from you is like you obviously with drafters participate in a lot of the player pick'em props and then also DFS. So one, tell us about week 13 because I know it's a big week, and congratulations to you on taking down one of your goals in the whale division. But I want to hear more about sort of where your focus is and how you get to that, your results and your analysis of the stuff you do focus on.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like everybody is so reactionary to what happened last season, to what happened last week or the week before that, they don't pay attention to certain factors that can really be beneficial to you financially and also in your fantasy rosters, which will inevitably be, beneficial to you financially. For example, when we were talking on Thursday on Sleazeball's show, shout out to Sleazeball, dude's great. I told you guys I liked Sam Laporta for an anytime touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns. He was, I believe, I was one of the only few content creators who had Sam Laporta in the top 5 tight end rankings, and he was the tight end 7 on the week, 2 touchdowns. And the reason why I got to that theory is because when looking at the opposition that the Detroit Lions were playing, which was the Chicago Bears, I noticed that not just there was a lot of red zone opportunity for the position of tight end or the slot, but there was a lot of targets that were not, completed. And, my evaluation concluded to the fact, well, if their run defense is so sound, and if their Chicago's run defense is so sound, Chicago's run defense is very good in the red zone. Yes, David Montgomery found the end zone a heck of a lot. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs found the end zone a heck of a lot. But down in the red zone, down in the money zone, they tightened up against the run, and they didn't allow a lot of running plays. They allowed a lot of targets and a lot of targets to opposing tight ends. If you look at the past performances, there was an average of 6 targets to the tight ends in the red zone, just not thrown accurately. So my conclusion was Jared Goff is a very accurate passer. Sam Laporta is a very excellent tight end. The opportunity is there. They're going to get into the red zone. Sam Laporta will find the red zone. And that's how I came to the conclusion for Sam Laporta. So it's not necessarily like one trick. Every week on Tuesday, I post like 30 charts where I'm just talking about the most advantageous matchups with certain statistical categories. Now, everybody thinks, oh my God, like you have Will Levis ranked as, number 3 in the advantageous. It's the advantageous market is not necessarily me saying this quarterback's going to be elite. It's me saying this player, this guy has an opportunity going against a defense that gives up X amount of success to this certain statistical category. What it comes down to is the analysis, finding a good player who has a good matchup in a good statistical category that translates into fantasy points and obviously betting props, and doing the advanced research. So target share is very high, right? Target share is absolutely incredible. We had Davante Adams for an anytime touchdown. Even though Aaron Rodgers hasn't necessarily been connecting his passes prior to the bye week, Davante Adams was top 5 in targets every single week. Jackson Smith-Njigba has been absolutely on fire. We faded Jackson Smith-Njigba this week because we saw that the New York Jets were the 6th best team at defending the slot position. And over 40% of the time when DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba are all healthy, that is where he lined up. We bet on Jayden Reed anytime touchdown. We said Jayden Reed was a smash play. You said, and I quote, the Dolphins don't give up a lot of production to opposing wide receivers. I said when he gets 70% more snap share due to Romeo Doubs being out and he aligns up in the slot, that is the one vacancy and weakness that the Miami Dolphins have. So it's
Disco, how many touchdowns did Jayden Reed score?
2.
God. Not just he's not even 1. He scored 2.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And he should have had a long one for 60+ yards right in the first quarter. I believe it was the 3rd snap. So yeah, man. Sometimes the analysis hits. Sometimes fantasy footballs. This was just a very good week for us.
Well, so you love to hear it. Ultimately, very good weeks, and hopefully you can smash and stack the very good weeks. So I guess you say it's a very good week, obviously. What were the highlights outside of talking about Sam Laporta, getting your smash touchdown? You had your Jaden Reed, but when you put together your lineup for the Whale, right? And maybe talk about the Whale specifically. What is it that how do you try to differentiate? Because obviously there's a lot when you think about DFS and playing in these sort of general pools that you try to have some sort of strategy where you don't want to have the same as everyone, but you want to be somewhat different, but also win. So what is your strategy on how, like, you set a goal that you wanted to win, you win in week 13. So what do you think was different about this week? You just nailed all the players, or like you got better as the season went along, or do you know what I'm saying? Like a little bit more detail on sort of the back end of how you analyze and think about each week and what you learned in the first 12 weeks that maybe helped you this week.
Yeah. So, just a bit on yesterday, I was doing a bunch of the Drafters Fantasy splash plays, the Shark, which is a $3.30 buy-in. On all 7, I noticed that there was a person who I've had him on my show several times, and he's one of the better fantasy football best ball minds. B. Kurt. He was in all 7 of my lobbies, and the way the drafts work is, instead of setting like your standard DFS lineup where it's pretty much your calls and you trying to fit people within a salary cap, you are drafting players that you're bullish on in a snake draft with 4 other people. It's a really unique twist on DFS, and it's been really fun, and it's been my go-to. So I got sick of it. I said, B. Kurtz in every single one of my lobbies on 7 of them. So I just said, instead of doing the $3.30 one where first place wins $1,250, I'll do one Sunday Whale, which is an $11 buy-in where first place wins $1,500 USD. And I say that because I'm Canadian, and that's 2,000 Canadian. So that's a huge win. But we had a very productive week in the sports books. We do every single week. With that being said, I looked at where people were buying high. Like, I've been adamant in the off season, I've been adamant in draft season, I've been adamant in every single week. Jamar Chase, no matter what, right? He was my first overall pick. I was at the 102. He got me 20.60 fantasy points, which was absolutely spectacular. And then on the turn, I got Bijan Robinson and Puka Nacua because both of them had a very good matchup and get a lot of usage, especially PPR format. I knew that I could push guys like Bucky Irvin because he goes later, and some people just don't even pick him up because everybody's so enthralled with, the Derrick Henrys, who had a decent outing, but I mean, the return on investment with a first round or second round pick was definitely not there. And he definitely wasn't going to fall. And then Mike Evans, he had a great matchup. He's another guy who I absolutely smashed as my 3rd wide receiver. Trey McBride was my tight end 1 of the week. Obviously, he didn't finish as a tight end 1, finished as tight end 2 or 3. Nevertheless, he had a spectacular outing. And then everybody faded Jonathan Taylor. Everybody absolutely hated Jonathan Taylor, didn't like him simply because everybody's going based off of the last couple of weeks. I knew Jonathan Taylor was a smash this week. I had him as my RB4. He got me 17.30 fantasy points as my last pick in the draft. And then Josh Allen took us home. Typically, you're sweating these tournaments, by like micro points, like 0.3, 0.4 points. I won this tournament. And it was against a good friend who's at the top of the leaderboard, Updog, who's finished second in the drafters big tournament twice. One of the best ball drafters on the planet. And I won by 13 points. So it was a very decisive victory. I had 184. Next best had 171. So it was very good. Josh Allen took us home. That reception/pass was one of the most unique plays and one of the most profitable plays of the year so far. So I'm very, very happy for that one.
What was the final result on how that counted?
So I got 13 fantasy points for that.
So you got a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown?
Yes, sir.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And it equated for the yards in both the passing touchdown and the receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely insane. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the moments after, I forget who I was with, and we're like, does that count for passing, receiving? Like, did he just double tap that? Like, that's like the sneaky most genius. That was awesome. I mean, what a way to wrap up the weekend for you.
Yeah, man, it was good. I'm very happy. And yeah, man, the sometimes the process is absolutely incredible, and sometimes fantasy football does fantasy football things, and Cooper Kupp goes for a dud. I mean, who would have saw that coming? Taysom Hill got hurt unfortunate, but yeah, man, the process is the process, and I've trusted the process, and we've hit, and our following on Twitter, our following on YouTube has grown exponentially, and people really rely on us. And I think transparency is one of the most important things, because not only do we count our wins, we definitely discuss our losses as well.
Yeah, and you got it. I mean, no matter what, you win, you're gonna lose. It's just the way stuff works. No one's ever gonna win everything. But no, it's been fantastic to watch. One of the things I've always admired since we've connected and been able to watch is you do have transparency alone. I mean, you're putting out the content and the weekly stuff, and a lot of times your stuff can be, significantly unique, I would say, compared to other stuff that I see. And I've always been interested in that because it is different. And so, you talk about either your system or the stuff that you sort of utilize. What is it that you are doing different than you think other creators or other posters that have, sort of been able to set yourself up to showcase a little bit of a different view? Because I see a lot of stuff and I've questioned it, not even questioned it, but it's been like, it's raised eyebrows at times where I go, this player is like number 1 or number 3 for this week. And I get it, because you have your reasons, and it always comes back to like, this is what the numbers are telling you. So like, I guess you're not going to give away everything that you do, but I mean, I guess I'm just curious to know a little bit more about that aspect of it. It's like, how do you get some of what you come up with? Like, where are you doing this from?
Honestly, I just created my own process, and I go through the process on a weekly basis. I spend about 4 to 5 hours on a daily basis researching different games, different slates, different statistical categories, different anomalies, just really trying to pinpoint. And then, here's the thing. I think what separates me from a lot of content creators and just a lot of people in fantasy alone is I am willing to bet like I'm right, but I have the humility knowing that I could be wrong, right? I want to bet on my guys. I want to bet on the people who the research backs, right? Because the process is there. And if I'm wrong, I have the humility to admit I'm wrong, because like sometimes shit happens, but I mean, nobody's perfect, but I do give a perfect effort, I want to say.
Yeah, no, more than perfect with the amount of energy and effort and stuff, but you're right. No, of course. Okay. So big draft energy. We're past the draft, but you love these drafts. Pretty interesting, the Shark stuff. I got to say, the biggest bummer for me location wise is oftentimes I can't do any of this. So it's like my DFS game is off there is no DFS this year for me, essentially, because of the state that I am oftentimes based in, unless I, get ahead of it and lock in some stuff. But it's just not practical for me to run DFS, but I do kind of love the weekly DFS. Now, with that being said, you've taken down the whale, right? The whale?
Yeah.
What's next?
Next is cashing our best ball lineups. I mean, I made a very, very big bet on myself financially. I decided to max out a lot of the drafters' best ball tournaments. And currently we have a lineup that's 9th in a $20,000 tournament out of 70,000 people. We have another lineup that's 23rd in a $25,000 tournament. And then we got a couple of lineups that look like they're going to make the good late push in the $3 million tournament. $500,000 goes to first. And then honestly, I'm just really trying to lock in for the best ball playoffs, because best ball playoff season is one of the most fun things you could do here on Drafters. And I know you have a promo code RIP. And people should definitely support the promo code. Get on Drafters Fantasy. It's one of the best apps out there. You got Pick'ems, you got you got Best Ball, you got daily slates where it's redraft format, and you could do it on all sports. You could do Pick'ems on all sports. It really is a spectacular app that I recommend a lot of people do. And when they use promo code RIP, it'll double their initial deposit dollar for dollar up to $100 Rooskies. So their first plays on my guy RIP.
That's 100% right. And ultimately, it's been tough to make my own plays and be able to share them, since I'm in a oftentimes location that doesn't allow that. I currently today am not, so I'm allowed to do all the stuff I want today. But it's made it a little bit challenging to be doing other stuff than just season long. Now, you talked about sort of the next up is season long for the best ball stuff, and hopefully good. You believe that your ROI on the entire season is going to be fantastic? Did you set a goal this season? Like, this is what I'm hoping that, we can do by the end of the year, and you're going to either outperform it or you're close, or I guess I'm wondering, so people that are not doing this regularly or interested, because I think that's where people can learn and really understand. It's like, it's a big commitment. Obviously, you said you bet a lot on yourself and stuff, but what do you say to someone that's just watching this and like, oh, I want to kind of get bigger or do more of this, or actually should I be investing my own hard-earned money?
Yeah, I would say so we posted a year ago. It's one of my favorite videos that, like, before our YouTube channel kind of got any sort of traction, we posted this video called the 10 draft commandments, the Big Draft Energy 10 draft commandments. And I would say that the biggest takeaway from that is just give yourself a standard and create a discipline, and hold yourself accountable to your standard and your discipline, right? Don't go based off of the hype train. Do your research, follow guys like Rip, because Rip is one of my favorite content creators, and he's very accurate with his predictions, not just in player props, but off-season takes as well. He smashed a lot of calls. And yeah, man, just make sure that not only are you investing financially, because that's part of it, you invest the time, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're just blowing your money on guesswork, you're not doing yourself a service. We got a great community of a bunch of great content creators who kind of take away, we bridge the gap of, the research process, and we give you guys insightful pinpoint details. We're live every Thursday and Saturday on the Big Draft Energy YouTube channel, going over all of our bets and pick'ems. We hit at a tremendous rate. I mean, our Thursday show on Sleazeball's channel, buddy, like, we cashed at an absurd rate. I've never, so like pick'ems is one of those things where it's like, my thing is I do single bets, and I'll do 250 single bets, and I've been very profitable. I've been over 78% on the year. I was 91% on the week, which is my best week ever. And I've been doing this for 6 years. With that being said, in pick'ems, like, you'll be lucky if you hit 1 out of 15, and we hit 9 out of 10 on Thursday for the Thursday and Friday slate, based off of the breakdown that you, myself, and Sleazeball had. So that was pretty fucking huge.
What I'm taking away from this is, like, I was just glad to be there. I didn't, I was kind of your spare part that I was helping out, just looking good, clapping it up, giving some good accolades, cheering you guys on as you came through with your stuff. But yeah, I did think you guys were hitting. There was a lot hitting, because I remember asking as I'm watching these games, like, I think that's what they said was going to happen, and that's happening. I think that happened. I was like trying to figure out where I could see it, but what a great hit rate. I think this means I got to tell Sleaze he's got to have me back more often so I can just be along for the ride. No, but you're right. It's continuing to grow. And the reason I want to ask you and talk about this and not just have specific player analysis this time is because I think this is only going to continue to grow as a trend, significantly as an industry, not just the rest of this season, but obviously next season and moving forward. Because clearly this stuff is taking off at a huge level, skyrocketing, with the opportunities to do different things too, and always finding where you can find the advantage. And obviously it's clear to me, as I've been able to connect with you and watch, that you have a certain area of the industry that you are not only doing really well in, but obviously this sort of, it's not even niche, but it is, but you really are putting out winning stuff that can continue to win. So hopefully people will start to win or have been winning along with you. Okay, let's actually talk a little bit now about, let's say, week 14. We're about to wrap up week 13. Got Monday Night Football tonight. We look to week 14. Do you have any players that you're like locked in on already, or how does it work for you getting ready for week 14? It's now Monday morning. Is this when you lock in, you're in the lab, you start getting ready for week 14, or are you already locked in? Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm already locked in, because here's a significant portion of week 14. It's Bye-Mageddon. We got 6 teams on bye, a lot of spectacular quarterbacks on bye, a lot of spectacular players at each position on bye. We got the Baltimore Ravens on bye. We got the Indianapolis Colts. We got the New England Patriots, my Pats. Yep. Tough loss this week to the Colts. Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels and co. Like, there's a lot of teams. There's 6 teams on bye. Denver Broncos are on bye. You absolutely were bang on with your Denver Broncos assessment, and I put a nice little ticket on that, over 5.5 wins. Thank you for that. We're locked in for week 14. We've already tried to put out a post. I don't see my post, but we've already tried to put out a post with our favorite smash starts, favorite tertiary plays, and our favorite waiver wire ads. For week 14. I'm surprised it's not up, but yeah, we're already locked in for week 14. We've already taken a look at it, and we kind of have an idea on how we're going to proceed with it.
Okay, so make sure to if you're watching this on X Live or wherever, you make sure obviously you're following. Just go. I mean, a lot of my followers obviously are already following you, but hopefully if they watch this or rerun, they will follow you. Okay, so for week 14, I do have this thing. Usually I do with everyone. This has been a little bit different this morning, and I was, on a personal level, really wanted to talk to you about some of your analysis and the back end stuff. But love to play a little segment called Walk of Shame. This is the morning after. We know the morning afters, you're, maybe taking the walk of shame. Maybe you're talking your game, right? Maybe you're hitting up your best friend saying, the morning after is good morning. It's a good night. Flip or black. So how about we do it for season long? Just talk to us about fantasy wise, player wise. Who's a player? And we can do this quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, or just name a few players throughout the entire kind of position load. But who is a player that you think, let's say, has had a good season to date, but you don't think really should be a reliable player moving forward at all because of either something has happened, situation, injury, or not?
So I'll start with quarterback. I want to say Jordan Love. I came in on the season betting on him to be my Super Bowl MVP. Yes, he's been dampened by a lot of injuries, but there's also just been a lot of things in between the eyes where it's just he's not making the right reads. He is looking quite volatile as a quarterback and as a player. Hopefully he does a little bit better. He has a tough matchup against a defense that doesn't allow a lot of touchdowns in the air, but they do allow a lot of yards against the Detroit Lions on Thursday Night Football. I'm still invested in Jordan Love. I'm still starting him if I have him, and I'm still betting on him. But he hasn't done exactly what I hoped he would do this year. What about you at the quarterback position? What you got?
Someone that I'm sort of out on at quarterback, Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to see. I mean, granted, the game last night with snow, you can't really take that as the issue, but I think it's more than that. He's lost obviously a number of weapons, but more so he's dealing with an injury. So he's a guy that I thought was a lot more reliable early in the season, but I think at this point it's very fair to say that he's a no go from you anymore.
It's funny in the off season, because Sleazeball is just a diehard 49ers fan. Yeah. He got offended. He thought it was a hot take and I was just saying things to piss him off. But I told him I was out on the San Francisco 49ers. You will not see me drafting CMC in round 1 in best ball or anywhere. You will not see me investing in Brock Purdy or Brandon Ayuk. One of the guys I'd be interested in is in Deebo Samuel, who is my most disappointing wide receiver at this point, who I'm not really high on, and George Kittle. And George Kittle has paid off significantly. Obviously, last night was weird, but he has a great matchup coming against the Chicago Bears, who allowed 2 receiving touchdowns to Sam Laporta this past week. So I do like George Kittle for a nice bounce back performance against Chicago. And then at running back, it's got to be Zamir White, man. That's been tragic.
Are you out on Zamir now fully?
Hell yeah. Okay. I'm completely out on Zamir White.
I didn't know if you were riding with him like 4 weeks ago,
but I mean, like he's been hurt for the most part, but like just the situation there is absolutely atrocious.
It's not good. But now we'll probably get a Zamir White like week 18 blowout game for sure.
I got 50% exposure to him in best ball. I could use that down the stretch.
Yeah. Well, I wish I was smart enough to listen to you in the off season, because as smart as I really am, I had Denver with the season total over great. I did choose the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers to be my Super Bowl matchup. So it looks good. We're doing good here. Hey, consistently bad is good.
I took Green Bay and Buffalo. So far, it's okay.
Yeah.
I still think Green Bay wins the Super Bowl this year. Just
okay.
Hopefully Jordan Love gets really, really good down the stretch, and I think the Green Bay Packers should and could win this game on Thursday against one of the best, if not the best, team in football.
Yeah, we're getting it's been a number of good Thursday night games this season, which I just remember years ago is like Thursday night never had good games, but I felt like this has been a good season for Thursday night football, and it continues this season. Okay, there's a couple of names there. Obviously, Jordan Love is one. Let's flip it. Is there any other names that you were not into coming into the season, you were not into for the first 10 weeks, but maybe they've appeared almost like the opposite of Zamir White, right? Like someone, for opportunity has come through and now it's just like, hey, it's the playoff season and you may actually want to ride with this player, even though he wasn't on your draft board. He wasn't someone we even talked about in the offseason.
Yeah, and he's also not somebody who, I've put in my top 10 lists on a weekly basis, but I think this changes this upcoming week, and that's Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position. I have faded him. I said, his offensive coordinator, his name Canales is gone, so Geno busted, and Geno's looking okay as well. But I was completely out on Baker Mayfield, and I was completely out on Mike Evans, and both of them look like they are, in fact, spectacular. Actually, Mike Evans was in my winning whale lineup, and along with Bucky Irving. So yeah, Baker Mayfield was the guy who I wasn't very high on, but he's earned my respect, especially coming back from that injury in a very tough game that Carolina. They look a lot better this year, and it is an eye opener this season for Baker Mayfield. He's definitely going to be on my radar moving forward.
Baker fits really well in the guy that his career has definitely flipped significantly, and the Tampa Bay is right there with Atlanta 6-6 to win that division. Someone's going to have to win it. We'll have to see who comes out of that. Okay, last minute, I'll get you out of here. Any other players that you want to, share a comment on for week 14? I know you mentioned George Kittle already, but any other guys, any other tips that we can think about for our weekly lineups or even for our fantasy lineups? It's Spy-Mageddon, so it's a big week, tough week. Who should we be watching?
I mean, so I'll talk about quarterbacks. I think Patrick Mahomes is in a great matchup against the LA Chargers. I think Xavier Worthy is a great stacking option. Xavier Worthy has been coming along. His targets have been there. They've just literally been missing by inches. I think he's going to break one soon, and I think this is the game to do it. Chargers defense last 4 weeks has been absolutely atrocious. So I'm really paying attention to Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. And I mean, like Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, obviously Dallas Goedert's banged up, so Grant Calcaterra could be a very, very good waiver wire addition. Should Dallas Goedert miss playing against Carolina, those are free fantasy points. Baker Mayfield, like we alluded to earlier, they got Las Vegas, so Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving. And then on the other end, Brock Bowers is going to be absolutely spectacular this week. Jacoby Myers has been very reliable on a weekly basis, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers give up a lot of production. I'm just trying to think of I don't know how to, like, New Orleans is such a weird anomaly to me. Like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, every week I'm like, no, he's not going to do it, and he does it. And then there's also Nikhil Westbrook-Akine. This guy's
touchdown maker, man.
20 passes, 8 of them are receiving touchdowns. Good for him. They got the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is one of the most advantageous matchups across the board for every statistical category, for every single position. And then it's interesting.
So anytime touchdown Nikhil?
Anytime touchdown for George Kittle?
No, for Nikhil Westbrook.
Oh God, I mean, like the moment you bet on like what one of the tertiary guys who shouldn't be doing it, like just like Taysom Hill, it's the moment they don't fucking do it. So I'm not going to do that. And pardon me for cursing.
No, I mean, this is an X-rated show. We're on X.
Right.
We're on X, baby. You can do whatever you want.
All right, I'm about to show my areolas. Let's go.
Ooh, it's spicy. Not just big draft energy, spice draft energy. All right, where can everyone follow you?
Big Drafters HQ on X. Pretty much the same thing on Instagram, on TikTok, and then Big Draft Energy over on YouTube. We put a lot of good content out on YouTube. We have a great community, you being one of the very crucial parts of our community, and we're very grateful to have you. And then on X, look for us on every Tuesday, because we pump out a lot of really, really good numbers, and those usually carry over into the week.
I love that. So as you heard, follow him across all the platforms. Maybe see Areolas when he's really rolling. And Tuesdays.
That's my only fans.
Yeah. Oh, well, subscribe there too, man. Help him keep winning. Then, everybody wins. All right. Tuesdays, make sure you follow for the content. There's a big week. It's Spy-Mageddon. It's week 14, and good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously, I will see you down the road, and I appreciate you joining me on the morning after.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Of course, man. Have a good one.
Peace.
All right, so fantastic. I one of my favorite people, honestly, not just from a standpoint of a great human, but I love people that are willing to put out information and content that is not necessarily the same as everyone. It's his own stuff. It's unique, and there's so much respect on doing it a little differently. Because if you're doing it the same and you're coming, what's the difference? There's no point in just doing what 100 different people are posting out, and it's always unique. So as he said, follow on Tuesdays for sure. Turn those notifications on. I know notifications can be tough. You're just getting them over and over for a lot of different people if you have them on and stuff. But if you are in the fantasy football game, if you're trying to play weekly DFS, if you're trying to do player props, pick'ems, not only does Big Draft Energy and Disco have all the information and content to really help you and provide and give you analysis on that. But there's the promo codes. You can get on Drafters HQ and all of that good stuff and start winning today. Week 14 is next week. Again, the morning after football, week 13. One of the reasons I wanted to jump on, even though we're taking a bye week on the box score breakdown and some of the analysis you saw, I really went away for vacation this week. I did take a real bye week. I did want to jump on here this morning and have a show no matter what. 217 tuned in. I appreciate you all very much. And thank you to obviously Big Draft Energy Disco for joining. And of course, the few questions and comments. We're going to continue to do the show when we can all throughout December as we move into the playoffs. Going to have a great time. Going to have more guests, might do some new things where, maybe I'll get two guys on at the same time and we'll kind of shoot it around the horn style and have some fun. But we're going to try to help continue to win as we get down the stretch here of the NFL season in 2024, culminating with the playoffs and the Super Bowl, which this year happens to be on my birthday in New Orleans. All right. Another great weekend is December 2nd. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving holiday week. Hopefully you're locked back in for the final month. Turn on the Christmas music, turn on the wins, start dialing up victories. It is the morning after football. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day and week. Stay healthy, stay fun. We'll see you next time.